Once more, the tips will rule the galaxy, and we shall have peace. What's going on, guys? It's Bergs here from The Casual Athlete, back at it again for another week of tips and predictions. And round 13 has just passed, and my God, it was upsets galore. How good was weekend's footy? I'm sure all the average punters made a bit of money, and so did I. It was a great birthday weekend as well, and nothing was better than watching my Cowboys win on Sunday as well. On my actual birthday, can't think of a better present than that. But before we get into the video, guys, just a reminder to like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week just for you guys. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to make sure that you don't miss out on any of our latest content. Now, let's just take a quick look back at how I did last week. First up, Parramatta, and we got the margin there as well, 1-12. I thought that they were impressive against the Cronulla Sharks. The Sharks seem to be dipping in form a little bit in the last couple of weeks. They came up against the Panthers and didn't score a point, and now against Parramatta, they've also had 30 points put on them again. That defense has gone a little bit wayward from the team that we saw against the Cowboys a fair few weeks back. We just didn't get enough from the Sharks in this game. They kept it a little bit close, but I thought with the inclusions that Parramatta were going to have, they were always going to have a good game here. And Gutho and Moses, you can just see it. They brought an energy to the team. They really got them moving, got them humming. The attack was on point. It was like Moses hadn't skipped a beat in 10 weeks. For the Doggies, they got a win up at McDonald Jones Stadium, and I've got to say, they have not let a try in 120 minutes of football at the moment. Their defense is such a massive turnaround from last year, and I'm so impressed with guys like Jacob Preston stepping up in the absence of Viliami Kikau. We had Josh Curran stepping up. We had players across the field for the Dogs just giving it their all, and the Knights, well, they just lacked that game breaker. They, have relied on David Armstrong in the last couple of weeks, but you can't really rely on a rookie too much, and he finally had that falter game where he wasn't perfect. He made a couple of mistakes, and not barking on him too much. He's been brilliant since he came in, but yeah, it definitely cost the Knights on this night. Penrith, they led 10-0 against the Dragons, and I've got to say, I'm very impressed with how the Dragons responded in the second half. I heard Shane Flanagan gave them an absolute spray at halftime, and rightfully so. They were basically versing the reserve-grade Panthers side. But we've seen the Panthers who have this next man up mentality, and it didn't happen in that second half. And I'm wondering whether Penrith are lacking that real quality depth at the moment. They just couldn't go on with this one and gave up a 10-0 lead and didn't score any points in reply to the 22-0 scoreline in the second half, and the Dragons ended up winning that one. For the Dolphins, yeah, I thought they were unlucky in this one. The Max Plath blocker rule, yeah, it's tough because when you think you've won the game, it's very hard mentally to get over that and have that taken away from you. And no doubt, Wayne Bennett was absolutely filthy in the press conference afterwards. And I've got to say, for someone who tipped the Dolphins, so was I. This hardly ever gets pulled up, if at all, really. But they have cracked down on it a little bit in recent times. But I've never really seen it in a match-winning situation. So unlucky for the Dolphins, and for the Raiders, man, they just keep turning up each and every week. They play for each other. They've got solid defense. Haven't got some really super quality star players, especially with their probably their best player out at the moment in Hudson Young. He's been killing it. For him not to be there and Mariota to come in and be a dominant force in his position, man, I can't give much more credit to the Raiders there. And for the Roosters, man, they really didn't throw much at the Cowboys. I thought the Cowboys' defense was extremely solid, and we also had a player in the bin at one point, and we ended up scoring a try, which has seemed to be happening a lot this year. I'm not exactly sure what it is when teams go down to 12. Maybe they just throw a bit of caution to the wind. They seem to be a little bit more conservative, and it was almost our best attacking period of the game at one point. But for the Cowboys, that's 2 in a row now. I'm extremely proud of the performance that they put in, especially against the Roosters, who have been hot recently. And the Roosters, yeah, they were missing Crichton, and Teddy got pulled out late, which probably disrupts your entry into the game. Shifting Manu back to fullback isn't just a quick fix. I know he's been brilliant there in the past, but was largely ineffective for most periods of this game. But we ended up getting 2 out of 5 this week, and I got to say that's a bit better than some other people that I know. I know a lot of people who went 0 and 5 who didn't tip any of the upsets. All 5 games were upsets this week, guys, which is just ridiculous. But we move on to next week. Let's see what the tips are. Just before we get into this week's tips, guys, a quick look at the tipping comp that we are running with NRL.com this year. And Chris at North Sydney Bears is still up the top there. We also have a move into second spot for Corn on the Cobbo with Jackson, who is in outright second place on 68 points. Then we also have Jay Fitz, who is in third position. Keep putting in your tips, guys, each and every week. I do update everyone about the tipping comp on my tipping videos every Monday. So stay tuned to make sure that you see your name in the top 10 each and every week. Now, let's get on to this week's tips. Okay, guys, first up, we have Origin on Wednesday night, and we all know the situation here. Edwards is out, Tedesco is back into that number 1 position. A lot of people saying that maybe he shouldn't have been put straight back into the squad, considering he wasn't selected in our 20-man squad. But we are going to press on as the Blues that we are. I think both of you guys know my opinions about both teams in the 2 videos that I did last week for the Queensland team and the New South Wales Blues team. I just think the Queensland team at the moment, all of them are in some quality form right now. Slater has picked a brilliant side, and I just think there's a few question marks around some of the Blues players. We have so many guys on debut. We have a few guys who are playing maybe their first or second Origin at the moment. And yeah, I just think the only thing that really heading me towards tipping the Blues is that it's in Sydney, and we can't afford to lose this game in Sydney. But man, we've done it so many times in the past. But what I will say is the last 5 Origin coaches for the Blues on debut have won their first match. So I'm backing Madge in this game. I think the Blues get it done on Wednesday night, especially it being here in Sydney, but I worry about the rest of the series. And I think that Queensland could run over us in the end and win the next 2 games, especially the second game being in Melbourne. It will be crucial to win the first 2 games of the series. So I'm backing the Blues in this week. Come on, Blues. Let's get this Madge era off to a brilliant start. Blues 1-12. Okay, on Friday, the first NRL game of round 14 is the Dragons taking on the Tigers down at Wynn Stadium. Now, over the last 10 games between these 2 teams, the Dragons have the better record, winning 6 out of those last 10 games. They've also won the previous 2 meetings between these 2 teams. For the Dragons, we will have to wait to see if Hame Sele can come back into the side after missing this week with a shoulder injury. And we're also still waiting to hear about Jack Bird's ankle issue that he had a couple of weeks back. For the Tigers, they should get their 2 strike centers back in Brent Naden and Justin Olam. Justin Olam been in superb try-scoring form for the Tigers, so he will be welcomed back into this side. The question remains for the Dragons as to whether Ben Hunt and Zach Lomax will be backing up from this game. It will be the first time that Zach Lomax has had to potentially back up from Origin duties, and Ben Hunt, well, he's done it a few times before. He might want a week's rest. Also, still in contract discussions about whether he might move to the Titans or not. At the end of the year, he's not ruling that out at this point in time, not really leaving that off the table. So very interesting to see what happens with Ben Hunt over the next coming months. For this game, though, it's a bit of a interesting one. Yes, the Dragons got a win last week, but it took an almighty halftime rev up from Shane Flanagan to get them over the line. And for the Tigers, well, their dip in form just continues at the moment. I think they've lost 7 or 8 in a row right now, and haven't won at Wynn Stadium since 2021. So they have won there before, but I just think with the Dragons, their record is extremely good at Wynn Stadium, and I don't really want to venture too far from the path on that one. But I just feel like games between these 2 teams are always very close, and the Dragons will probably make it look a bit closer than it actually should be. And the Dragons have just become so hard to tip this year, man. I do not know if they're going to win week to week. They could very easily lose this game for me. So I'm going to edge on the side of the Dragons, but I think the Tigers will make it close. Dragons 1-12. Saturday's games start with the Gold Coast Titans taking on the Rabbitohs up at Cbus Super Stadium. Now, over the last 10 games between these two teams, the Rabbitohs have the far better record, winning 9 out of those last 10 games. They're also on an 8-game winning streak against the Titans. So, yeah, big shoes to fill for this current Rabbitohs side, who are languishing at the moment down in 17th position, even after the bye. They do get a couple of ins this week. I do expect Cody Walker to be back for this game. Also, Cam Murray, not too far away. He may be available for this game as well, but we'll have to wait and see. For the Titans, they get a host of ins this week. They get Jaden Campbell back. They should get Jojo Fafita available for this game, and Kieran Foran was not too far away a couple of weeks ago, so I expect him to slot back into the halves for this game. For the outlook here, it's a bit of a dumpster fire at the moment. Both these teams aren't having the best season at the moment. I would say the Titans are in a little bit better form, just coming off the Broncos victory and bye week last week, but then also you have the Rabbitohs who beat Parramatta and then also had a bye last week. So both their teams should be very fresh. I do like the Rabbitohs in this game. They've won their last 4 games at Cbus Super Stadium as well against the Titans. So it's a team that they've got tremendous success against. And I think that continues this week, and that's why they're actually going to be my Hills Cricket Academy lock of the week. They haven't been too affected by Origin this year, the Rabbitohs, just because of their really poor form. But I think the team in recent weeks has galvanised a little bit. I just think for the Titans, they're still missing a few guys. I do think David Fafita will have a massive game in this game, just because he wants to maybe prove to Billy Slater that he shouldn't have left him out of the Origin side. And with my earlier prediction, I do expect Queensland to lose, and then I reckon David Fafita will get picked for Origin too. So it'll just be a massive FU to Billy. But I think the Rabbitohs do get a win in this one. I just think that they need to string a couple of wins together for their own confidence. And I think for the team, it'll do them the world of good. So let's get on the Rabbitohs this week, 1-12. The next game on Saturday is the Cowboys taking on the Warriors at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Now, over the last 10 games between these two teams, the Warriors have the better record. They've won 7 out of the last 10 games against the Cowboys. Now, the big question in this one is, will the 6 players out for the Cowboys back up from Origin for this game? And I've got to tell you, if they do, we're going to be looking at a Warriors side that is very fresh, having the week off. Plus, they also get a host of ins back for this game. Rocco Berry should be back. Kurt Capewell should be back. Adam Fanua-Blake, Chance Nickel-Klukstar, Sean Johnson, Tohu Harris, Wade Egan. The list goes on and on. I just think for the Cowboys, they had a terrific win last week. A couple of guys that really stood up. Fini Fuyaki was unstoppable. I thought Jackson Purdue on debut as an 18-year-old was phenomenal. And then Scotty Drinkwater really carried us home. And I do think it's a kind of win with our defensive effort that can really give us the confidence to, repeat that performance moving forward. I was just more happy than anything. I was happy for us not to concede more than 20 points. It was, one of those fixtures that you completely went against the script, all logic that led into that game as well. I think the Cowboys, you expect them to turn up. You expected them to concede, I reckon, 30 points, especially against a Rooster side that has been hot in the attack department. And for the Cowboys, man, they stood together. They defended their line, turned them away, kept turning them away. And I just couldn't be more prouder of the boys. And on my birthday as well, it was awesome to watch. For the outlook for this game, I just don't like the fact that we have 6 players backing up from Origin. And if they do come into the side, they're going to be a little bit gassed, let's be honest. And I think us having a 6-day turnaround into a game where with the team we're playing has a lot longer to prepare for the game, especially with the week off. They would have had a few guys who aren't as banged up as they were in round 12. I just think I've got to go the Warriors in this game. I think that they've got a better outlook just with the guys that they have coming back into the squad. Unfortunately for Cowboys fans and for myself, I want to tip the Cowboys, but I just don't see them winning it at the moment in this one. Got to go the Warriors, 1-12. Saturday night game is the Broncos taking on the Sharks. Now, over the last 10 games between these two teams, the Broncos have the better record. They've won 8 out of the last 10 games against the Sharks. One big in for the Broncos this week is Tony Staggs should be available after spending a couple of weeks on the sideline, plus the bye last week. And for the Sharks, it'll just be about whether Nico Hines and McInnes back up from Origin on Wednesday night in this game. Really difficult to tip in this one. I think the Sharks are on a little bit of a slide right now. They showed a lot of promise against teams like the Storm in recent weeks, and then the Roosters as well just after that, who I consider to be top form material this year. I would say the Broncos are in a bit of a similar situation right now. They can't get their defense right. Their defense at the moment is really letting them down in games, especially in that Titans game, man. They put 30 points on the board, and you expect to win games when you do that. And the Titans ended up beating them by 2 points in that game. So, Broncos also have a ton of guys backing up from Origin as well in this game. It's tough to say who will and who won't, but they definitely have more than the Sharks do. The Sharks haven't won at Suncorp since 2020, which also kind of sways me more towards tipping the Broncos. The Broncos need a win at the moment. I think for the Sharks, they've done enough to stay in the 8, and especially through this Origin period when they're missing their chief playmaker, they can afford to maybe take a couple of losses just because they've done the hard yards at the start of the season, and that's really important if you want to stay in that top 8 race, and especially that race for the top 4. I just got an edge on the side of the Broncos in this one. I expect a response just on the back of them having the week off. They had some time to recover, really process that Titans loss and what that would have done to potentially their confidence. It would have knocked them down a little bit of a peg for some of those young guys on the team to show that they maybe need to work a little bit harder, need to work on their defense. And no doubt Kevy would have had them doing a lot of that over the break. And no doubt they probably didn't get a break. And especially for the guys in Origin, they're definitely not going to get a break. So I expect the Broncos to get a win here. I just think that the Sharks will definitely put some points on the board. They're an extremely good attacking team, so they'll make it close. I'm going to go the Broncos, 1-12. Next up, we have the Storm taking on the Knights at Amy Park. Now, over the last 10 games between these two teams, the Storm have the better record. They've won 8 out of the last 10 games against the Knights, but the Knights are on a 2-game winning streak against the Storm, so Adam O'Brien has definitely figured something out recently over his former club. Now, for the Storm, we may need to see if Ryan Pappenhausen is going to come back for this game. He is tipped to make his return this round, but I just think with the amount of injuries that he has had in the past, the Storm will probably not risk it and keep him out for maybe another week. I do think that Jacob Saifiti will be punished for his headbutt as well against Reed Marnie. That was a bit of a stupid thing to do at the end of the game. The game was gone. No need for it. I think Reed just gotten the better of the Knights the last couple of times they've played. I think the outlook for this game is pretty simple. I do think that the Knights are about to come into a tougher stretch of the season. They've been not exactly playing the best opposition. They had an opportunity last week to win 5 in a row, and I think against a dog side who didn't have Viliami Kickout, didn't have some of their Origin players, and Addo Khan went down during the game as well. I do think the Knights have really missed a trick here, and they didn't score a try against the Dogs. So it just goes to show you how good the Dogs' defense has been, and they've definitely turned it around from their performance against the Knights last year. So, yeah, for the Knights, it starts this week against the Storm, and going down the Amy Park, especially with the Storm coming off a bye, is no easy feat. And I do think that their winning streak against the Storm will come to an end this week. I expect the Storm to get a win here. They don't actually have too many guys backing up from Origin. They are going to be missing Munster, but Jerome Hughes should still be there. It'll just be to see if Harry Grant also backs up from that Origin game. He'll be playing off the bench in Origin, so he won't actually have too much game time. So while Origin does take it out of you, I do expect Grant to be available for this game. So yeah, I just think for the Knights, they're about to come into this really tough stretch of the season for them, and it's not going to be pretty. Storm, 13 plus. Sunday, we're out at Penrith, where the Panthers will be taking on the Sea Eagles. Now, over the last 10 games between these two teams, the Panthers have the better record. They've won 8 out of the last 10 games, but we do know earlier in the season that Manly got a win over Penrith at Brookvale, but this game is out at Bluebet, and I've got to say, Panthers coming off a loss is probably the least favourite thing that any team in this competition wants to do. We saw what they did to the Sharks off a loss a couple of weeks back, and for the game on the weekend against the Dragons, they started really well, 10-0 up at halftime. They were sticking to their defensive structure. It was looking quite good. I thought that a couple of players who don't normally start in the team, it's really stepped up. Um, I don't think that they've got too many changes coming in for this week that will help them get over the line anymore. It'll more be about whether guys like To'o, I think we know that Dylan Edwards is going to be out for this game with that injury. He didn't play for the Blues. He might be right for Penrith, but I think that's maybe up to the physio staff to let Ivan Cleary know. But, we'll see. Toto may come back. We may see Liam Martin come back as well. Tough backing up as well, considering that they've got a couple of good guys to come in at the second row position. Luke Garner should be back for this game, and he's been in some pretty decent form. So, yeah, I do think Penrith will get a win here against Manly. They're going to be without a couple of guys, especially DCE backing up at his age from Origin. Always going to be tough to do. And then we're still waiting to hear on Kohler. But Manly did get the week off, so I think that definitely helps them. They were looking to try and get Jake Simpkin during the week from the Tigers. Not too sure whether that means that Lachlan Croker's injury is a bit more serious than we first thought, and Gordon Chan Kum Tung, who is part of the side as well, maybe they don't trust him enough, so they've gone and trying to get another hooker. But I think the Seagulls do need a win in this one, but I just think with Jake Drabojevic being potentially out and not backing up from Origin, Tommy's not there, DCE will be backing up from Origin, Olakawatu will be playing his first Origin game. We'll have to see if he backs up as well. These are some really important players for Manly, and I think without them or with them not being 100%, the Penrith off a loss mentality will come back to bite them. I'm just going to go Penrith on this one, but I think they get it done pretty comfortably after last week's loss, 13 plus. We go to Monday for our last game of the round, and as is customary on the King's birthday long weekend this year, we have the Dogs taking on the Parramatta Eels. This has been a long-standing rivalry, over 100 games played between these two teams over the years, and they absolutely despise each other. Over the last 10 games between these two teams, Parramatta have the better record. They've won 8 out of the last 10 games against the Dogs. They are also on a 4-game winning streak against the Dogs. The Dogs' last win coming on the King's birthday a couple of years ago. For Parramatta, they were outstanding last week. I can't give them enough credit for bouncing back from not only Brad Arthur getting sacked, but the players really took some ownership of the game last week. I thought Clint Gutherson stood up in a leadership role really well. Mitchell Moses, he has been an absolute massive loss for them over the last 10 weeks, and it'll now be about trying to rally the troops and get together because they do have a decent team, Parramatta. They just need to click it into gear and start winning a few games. And if they can do that, then I do consider them a chance to make the top 8. They're not too far out of it despite being in 15th place at the moment. They're 2 wins outside the 8 right now. So, yeah, they can definitely get there. It's about whether the team want it enough. And Trent Barrett's got to be given some credit as well. It's not easy taking over as an interim coach. For the Dogs, they're going to be without Josh Adokar and Viliami Kikau. We definitely know that. Josh Adokar unfortunately tore his hamstring on the weekend, so he will be out for another 8 weeks. And that's disappointing for a player of his speed to be getting hamstring injuries. That's just really tough. You always want to see the Fox at full flight. And he did the damage on the weekend, scored a double, and then unfortunately had to go off due to injury. And Kikau has a compound fracture in his finger as well, so he's going to be out for another couple of weeks to come. For the Dogs, it's just about whether Burton can back up for Origin as well as their captain Stephen Crichton. So we'll have to see how they pull up after Wednesday night. But they've got a fair few days to back up for that game. They've got 5 days to back up and play on that Monday. So, yeah, I really like the outlook of this game. Both teams are in some form in different areas. I think you say form in a relative term. I think that the Eels, while they've only played 1 game with basically their full strength team at the moment, but their full strength team is a good team, and I think they've got the wood on the Dogs over the last couple of years. And with that full strength side in place, a lot of them don't have to play Origin. I think they've just got Jermaine Hopgood out as far as Origin duties are concerned. So that is a positive for the Parramatta Eels, and they can take that into this game. It's just about whether they can defend the Dogs at the moment, and the Dogs. Their defense has been outstanding. So, as I said earlier in the video, they haven't conceded a try in 120 minutes of football at the moment. So, man, you got to take their hat off to the Dogs coaching staff and Seraldo. The boys are really buying into the system this year. I just think in this game, the Eels are back to full strength, and it'll be a little bit too much for the Dogs to try and get a win here, although I do like the form that they're in. I'm going to have to go the Parramatta Eels in this one. I just think the Dogs have too many outs. Parramatta, 13 plus. So that's it for the video this week, guys. I'm so looking forward to watching Origin this week. Hopefully the Blues can get a victory to start off the Madge era. If you have any thoughts about my tips, please let me know down in the comments section below. Please visit our sponsors. The links are in the description. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.